So today, in talking about this, the title of today's talk is Bondage Free, and I'm coming off of Easter using some of the Easter story, and I also want to say here that what today is about is when we are living in that place of resentment and blame, and still carrying the weight of what somebody else or an organization or weather or something did to us, and having that define our today experience. So this is not just about our initial feelings. I always want to honor that when things happen. We're going to go into that place of feeling that for a little while. But what today is about is letting go of those things that are keeping us hooked into something that is not serving what we want our life experience to be today. I want to share with you first a couple of quotes, and the first one is by Ken Crockett, and he said, "Those whom you don't forgive are holding you as a hostage." And this is author unknown, but an unforgiving person is not free. He or she is controlled by unconscious forces, avoiding certain situations and opportunities, imprisoned in his or her own negativity. One of my patients described this graphically when he spoke of how he had marinated in his own toxicity for 15 years before discovering the forgiveness process. Isn't that interesting? Marinating in my own toxicity. I think most of us can relate to that. And that's why this topic is important for us to talk about on a pretty regular basis, because the reality is we have opportunities every day to forgive, every day. And I loved somebody shared with me just yesterday at the Soulful Saturday that she has been learning to live in a spirit of forgiveness, to walk in a spirit of forgiveness. And that really hit me, just even insofar as when I'm out on our interesting streets and somebody pulls out in front of you, or somebody's not going the speed limit, and how quickly we can move into that place of blaming them and anger and resentment, and how we can live from the spirit of forgiveness, and just, it makes our life a lot easier, doesn't it? We're not in this roof all the time. Okay, I want to first share with you what forgiveness we're not talking about today. And these are actually two little tidbits that were actually true little stories. The first one is when Narvaez, the Spanish patriot, lay dying, his father confessor asked him whether he had forgiven all of his enemies. Narvaez looked astonished and said, "Father, I have no enemies. I have shot them all." Not what we're talking about. Another one is that late one summer evening in Broken Bow, Nebraska, a weary truck driver pulled into an all-night truck stop, goes in and he orders his food, and the waitress had just served him his food when three mean-spirited, leather-jacketed motorcyclists decided to bother him. And so in addition to verbally abusing him, one came over, picked up his hamburger, one came over, picked up his french fries, and one came over and just started drinking his cup of coffee. And you think about, well, how would I have responded to that? And how he responded to this was kind of surprising, because he just graciously got up from his seat. He took his dinner ticket and his money over and placed it on the counter, and he calmly walked out the door. And the waitress, followed over to put the money in the till and just watched him as he drove away. And one of the motorcyclists said to her, "Well, he's not much of a man, is he?" And she said, "Well, I don't know about that, but he sure isn't much of a truck driver. He just ran over 3 motorcycles on his way out." That may be what we want to do, but that's not the forgiveness we're talking about today. From the Interpretive Bible, The Message, from Mark 11:22-25, says, "Jesus was matter of fact. Embrace this God life. Really embrace it, and nothing will be too much for you. This mountain, for instance, just say, go jump in the lake. No shuffling or shilly-shallying, and it's as good as done. That's why I urge you to pray for absolutely everything, ranging from small to large. Include everything as you embrace this God life, and you'll get God's everything. And when you assume the posture of prayer, remember that it's not all asking. If you have anything against anyone, forgive. And only then will your heavenly Father be inclined to also wipe your slate clean of sins. And really what this is saying for me anyway is that when I'm harboring this unforgiveness, this resentment, this blame, these awful feelings towards somebody, it's not that God could ever withhold from us. That's not what it's about. It's that we have created this block for the goodness of God to really flow and express so freely in our lives. So it's important. This is an important part of our journey. So I'm going to go back for a moment to last week, to Easter, and I'm going to share with you again some of the words that John Shelby Spong shared with us. He said, look at this Jesus, look at his cross. He is rejected, he is betrayed, he is denied, and he responds not with defensiveness, but by loving those who reject and those who betray and those who deny. He is forsaken, mocked, tortured, and killed. And look at his response. He loves those who forsake him. He prays for those who are torturing him. He pours his life out for those who will take his life away. And some of the last words that Jesus says on the cross, our Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Beautiful, powerful words. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, in our humanness, we may be saying, okay, I can do this forgiveness process, but there's no way that they, whoever they are, didn't know what they were doing. And so we're going to go a little bit deeper into this idea. And not only deeper, but into a more expanded and broader view of how these words and the power of these words that he spoke. We can see the Jesus statement of forgive them for they know not what they do from a different perspective. And this is something that I picked up somewhere, so I can't tell you who wrote it. But it says our critics or so-called enemies are really our best friends in disguise. Oh, that's a hard one, isn't it? I need some water. Sorry. Boy, that kind of stuck there, didn't it? Oh, man. Such people push us to new levels of being and make us do things that we wouldn't likely do without their assistance. And one of those things is such people make us pray when we don't want to, or we don't have the spiritual discipline to do it on our own. You know, for myself, as I look at this, it makes me ask the question, am I really walking my talk? Am I staying in that place of blaming somebody else, of talking about it with people, trying to get people on my side, of making this bigger than what it really has to be? Or am I going to allow this experience to expand me? Am I going to allow this experience to peel away some of the layers that again are keeping my light from expressing in its most brilliant way? Thank you so much. Excuse me just a moment, please. John Shelby Spong says these people, these experiences, are actually making us become so large for God and access dimensions of our being that we would not be able to touch without their help. And hear that. These experiences are actually making us become so large for God and access dimensions of our being that we wouldn't actually be able to do without their help. So we forgive them, for they didn't really know what they were doing. But we do know that they are supporting our own resurrection process and helping our life become fully supported by Spirit. We realize that there is only God and we don't need anything else. So I want to share with you, and it's a very, very, very shortened version of a story that really helped me in moving through some forgiveness. Especially years ago, I was so grateful to have read this story, and it has helped me from that point on. And the story helped me, and that's a huge part of what forgiveness is about. That's not the only part. But what we're going to find is forgiveness really, initially is for us. Forgiveness is for us to release the toxicity. Forgiveness is for us to expand. But forgiveness actually affects everything in the world around us, everything and everybody. And it's The Little Soul and the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. And like I said, this is a very shortened version of this. If you have not read this, I encourage you to do so because it's just filled with treasures. But essentially, this story is about a little soul who is really excited to come to Earth. And this little soul is just saying, oh, I'm so excited, I can't wait to get there, and I want to experience everything. And God says, that's great, little soul. And the little soul says, and one of the things that I really want to experience while I'm there is I want to experience forgiveness. And God says, well, that's okay, but there's really no forgiveness that's needed in the greater realm. And the little soul says, yeah, but this is something that I see all the time, and it seems to be something that really helps people, and so I want to experience forgiveness. And finally, this older soul steps up and he says, little soul, I will help you. I will help you experience forgiveness. And the little soul said, oh, thank you, thank you. And the older soul says, but here's what you need to know. That in order for you to experience forgiveness, I'm going to show up as something really bad in your life. I'm going to hurt you in some deep ways. And the little soul said, oh. And the older soul said, but little soul, I love you so much, and I'm willing to do that for you. But here's what I need for you to do for me. And the little soul said, yeah, sure, what? What is it? What can I do? And the older soul said, when I show up as this hurtful, horrible being in your life, please remember who I am so that you can help me remember who I am. And I was so touched by that story. I don't know what the truth is about what happens before we incarnate into these bodies. I don't know what the truth is about contracts or making decisions before we come. I don't know what the truth is about reincarnation. It makes sense to me. I don't know what the truth is about that. But as I look at this story, it helped me in that moment to shift everything in my consciousness and to see this person that had really hurt me in a lot of ways, to see them from a different perspective and to recognize and to realize, and boy, I can sure say it today, easily today, that I grew so much from that experience because I found myself. I found my voice. I found more of me through that experience. And when I really let myself sink into that and open myself up to healing through that, I was actually able to get to a place where today I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that person in my life. And I really don't harbor those feelings, those strong feelings anymore of what happened as much as, wow, look at who I am today. Look at, I'm so much more of who I desire to be. That was a huge part of it. And of course, other things along the way. We don't just have one, do we? Anybody here just have one person that's ever showed up that way? No, again, we have opportunities that show up all the time. Now, in the Bible, Judas is known as the great betrayer. And of course, Judas plays a crucial role in the Easter story. I want to share with you again from John Shelby Spong. He says, note, it was a seeming betrayal. Judas is often unjustly maligned. But without Judas sacrificing himself, Jesus would not be remembered today. Sacrifice means to make sacred. Judas is often condemned as the one who loved Jesus the least. In fact, he may have been the one who loved Jesus more than anyone. He was serving as the catalyst for the glad surprise of the resurrection to take place. And I was guided to pick up the Gospel of Judas, which was discovered numerous years ago and went through the National Geographic Society to make sure that it was actually valid and original, and yes, it is. And so you look at the Gospel of Judas, and you find a totally different story than what's told in our traditional Bibles. And you find the story of a man who loved Jesus so much, and Jesus would tell him that his journey is not going to be an easy one, and that ultimately it was that Jesus had asked Judas to do exactly what Judas had done. And the thing is if that hadn't have happened, would we be sitting here today talking about the great teacher, talking about Jesus and everything that he taught us? Perhaps it wouldn't be the same. And so it's really moving from that place of looking at people in our lives as being our enemies, as being against us. And again, please hear me that I'm saying when 6 months later, 10 years later, 20 years later, we're still carrying that burden, we're still in bondage to that, I'm thinking it's time. It's time for us to look at things differently. Oprah Winfrey, on her Sunday, it's a Super Soul Sunday, she had a man, his name is Adias Shanti, and he wrote a book called Falling into Grace. And I want to share with you some of the words that he shares about this. He says, the most difficult moments were as important to our spiritual unfolding and probably much more important than the happy moments, if we awaken to them. And I think that's the key in getting ourselves out of bondage to that, is our willingness to awaken to something greater, to something that will expand us and deepen us and open us up more. We are not taught that difficulty can have a profound and meaningful effect on us. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't taught that growing up. They don't teach that in school. Be unconditionally open to it and take responsibility. Now here's what's interesting. How have I gotten myself here right now? He says about blame, if someone else was fully to blame for my current state, then that's it. I have no hope. I'm stuck, and that is hopeless. They may certainly have had an effect on my experience, but I must own up to how I am and have been carrying it. The keys to our happiness are not in somebody else's pocket from the past. They are in yours. It's me. It's I'm the one that's been in my way. How am I sustaining that trauma? How am I traumatizing myself? How am I continuing it? Not to take blame for it, but since the past isn't here now, how am I keeping it alive? We live from our history instead of stepping up out of our history. Isn't that an interesting line? We want to step up out of our history. And he said, bless the energy and wish it its freedom. I just love that. Bless the energy and wish it its freedom. So how do we move into this process of forgiveness? I'm going to first share with you just a short process that has worked for me. There's many, many, many processes that we can use for forgiveness. One of the things, whenever it would come up, I would speak, what Jesus would speak. Get behind me. You have no power over me. Get behind me. Get out. I would sometimes, initially when it would come up and it would be so big and I wanted to shift it, I would have to command it. Get behind me. You have no power over me. Or get out. Get out of wherever you are. If you're in my car with me, if you're in the grocery store with me, if you're in bed at night with me in the middle of the night and I'm rehashing you again, get out. You have no power over me. Another good thing to do is to write down whatever is going on inside of you. Get it outside of you. And write it down, and then tear it up. And then Jesus said, bless your enemies, do good for them, pray for them. And so this is the next big step, is to find a way to bless them. And one of the ways to do that I have found is to think about what it is that I desire for my life experience. And then to wish that for them. Because hopefully we're wanting good stuff in our life experience. So we think about that, and then to say, and I wish this for you. I wish this for you. And I pray for your well-being. And I love, again, when you go to Adi Ashanti, bless that energy and wish it its freedom. I give you freedom. You are free to go. I give you that freedom. And, ultimately, here's the thing, is ultimately you will, I can guarantee you this, if you are open to it, you will get to the place where you can be in gratitude for them showing up in your experience in the way that they have, because you have grown from it. Because you have grown from it. But if you really want to just get this down to one thing, the simplest thing to do is just to say, here I am, God. I want to let this go, or I want to let this go. Show me how. How do I do it? How do I do it? Corrie ten Boom was a Dutch Christian who, along with her father and other family members, helped many Jews escape the Nazi Holocaust during World War II and was imprisoned for it. So I'm going to share with you something that Corrie ten Boom shared. She was told of not being able to forget a wrong that was done to her. And she kept rehashing the incident night after night. And finally, Corrie, what did she do? She cried out to God for help. Help me, help me, help me in releasing. And here's the thing, is that when we are open to it, God will show the way. It's exactly what the song we were singing. Once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. And so she said that her help came in the form of a kindly Lutheran pastor to whom she confessed her failure after 2 sleepless weeks. And here's what he said to her. Up in the church tower, there is a bell which is rung by pulling on a rope. But you know what? After the sexton lets go of the rope, the bell keeps on swinging. First ding, then dong, slower and slower, until there's finally a final dong, and it stops. I believe that the same thing is true of forgiveness. When we forgive, we take our hand off of the rope. But if we've been tugging at our grievances for a long time, we mustn't be surprised if old angry thoughts keep coming for a while. They're just the ding-dongs of the old bell slowing down. And so it proved to be. There were a few more midnight reverberations, a couple of dings when the subject came up in her conversations, but the force, which was her willingness in the matter, had gone out of them. And they came less and less often, and at last stopped altogether. We can trust God not only above our emotions, but also above our thoughts. So be easy on yourself, and at the same time, I'm going to invite you to use tough love on yourself. To say, it's me. You know what? It's not about anybody else. It's not about an organization. It's not about the way the weather showed up. It's not about any of that. I'm the one in my way. And this thing may have affected my experience, but they are not to blame for my life experience today. And so I am willing to let go and to release those chains that have kept me there. You know, God transforms our world a little at a time through each and every one of us. And the song Use Me says, God needs us to shine its light and to make this world a better place. And the thing is when we let our light shine, we will rise above any crucifixion experience in our lives. And the whole world will celebrate that resurrection of our heart with us. And in fact, what happens is we become united in consciousness, and everything else rises. That's why this is so important. This is so important, because when we rise up out of anything, it affects everything else in the world around us. You know, Easter is not merely the celebration of the life of Jesus. It's the celebration of the life of every single one of us. And Jesus, this great teacher, reminds us that we are capable of doing everything that he did and even more. And I think about that, if Jesus, who had this, probably for most of us, we can't even begin to conceptualize all that he went through. However, I will also say here that in talking to a number of you, I know that many of you have experienced, especially growing up, things similar to this, but he showed us that we could rise up out of it, that we could love, and that we could forgive. And when we do that, my friends, our life shines, our very life shines, and it glorifies the power and the presence and the goodness and the love of God. And just as our great teacher was able to say it, it is then that you and I will be able to see that when you see me, you see the presence that sent me. And that is our highest calling. When you see me, you will see the presence that sent me. And it's one of us at a time, waking up and choosing, I'm going to do this differently. It's not necessarily easy, but I'm going to tell you, it is worth it. It is worth it for the rest of your life. Namaste.